Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be learning about vertical asymptote of a function. And again, for this thing, we have one of our class student, Andrew Mancini, and he was here before on this channel too. He showed me a lot of respect, a lot of courage, and he's one of our smartest students, so I chosen to have him for another video too. And I can also tell that he'll be here for another 4 or 5 videos because he's been doing great and he knows a lot of stuff about this thing. Hey, welcome, Andrew Mancini.
Hey, thank you. I just want to, before we start introducing this subject, I want to leave you with an inspirational quote. Math can be difficult, whether you're a genius or not. Just kidding. But math can be difficult, and so just a general inspirational quote. Whoever said nothing is impossible has obviously never tried stapling water to a tree. Okay, with that, we'll get into the math.
All right, so we're going to be learning about vertical asymptote of a function. So basically, we're going to be finding an asymptote of a function with vertical lines.
Wait,
so
what is an asymptote?
Basically, an asymptote is when if you graph a function, that line is never going to touch that axis. It's never going to touch that value, I guess. So for example, if you have a graph where a graph goes that way, then there's going to be an asymptote here, a dashed line, which this graph will never touch. It could be x equals -1, x equals -1.5, anything. So that x equals -1 is the asymptote, which this line will never touch. It's going to get deep, but it's never going to touch there. Ooh, good one. So now we have this equation where y equals x squared minus 36 over x squared minus 8x plus 15. So now we got to simplify this thing. I mean, it's really easy to simplify this thing and break it down into two folding when we fold it, which will come down to x minus 6 and x plus 6. This is how we can simplify this thing, but again, this is going to be a tough one because we don't have the folding. For this thing, we got to make an x where we'll put down the c and the p value because the a is already 1, so we don't really care about what's going to happen there. So we'll go 15 at the top and -8 at the bottom. So now let's find a number that multiplies to 15 and adds or subtracts to -8. Well, what are the simplifiers of 15? We have 15 and 1 and 3 and 5. So I think 3 and 5 would match to -8. So we'll have 3 and 5. So since it's a positive and this is negative, we gotta have both negative. Which way? -3 times -5 equals positive 15, and -3 minus -5 will equal -8. So now here we're gonna go underneath and we're gonna have x minus 3 and x minus 5. And from now, Andrew will show us how to find the vertical asymptote.
We go back to this definition of a vertical asymptote. If an asymptote is, as we defined, a line that the graph can't cross, we can think of a vertical asymptote as something like x can never equal, we could say -1 or -0.5 or something. So this video is going to teach you, other than just by guessing, how can we figure out what that vertical asymptote is. If we look at this, even what we just gave you, x can't equal whatever number, what we're solving for is an x value or multiple x values that this graph can't cross. So then what we have to take into account is, well, based on this, we have our y up here, but what we're really after is what x values won't work. So that's when we need to look at this equation that we foiled to get, that we factored to get here. What we're looking for is values that will make the denominator equal to 0. Whether you try it just with mental math or on your calculator, if you do any number divided by 0, that's just undefined. We can't solve for that. That's why we're solving for specific numbers for the denominator. Based on what we factored, if we set x minus 3 equal to 0, we can find that x would equal 3, and if we do the same thing with -5, we'd find that x equals 5. If we were to go back and plug this in, let's say we plug in 3 for x, 3 minus 3 is 0, that means the entire denominator is going to be 0, meaning it won't work. Therefore, x equals 3 and x equals 5 are, I'll write that further up, are our two vertical asymptotes in this equation.
Thank you so much for watching our video. I hope this makes sense. I know this was one of our toughest topics so far that we've explained, but I'll be leaving different links on our channel where you'll find different problems, and leave us a comment if you have any questions.
And if you want more inspirational quotes, be sure to like and subscribe.